all of you out there. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the show. I am here today with Scott Fink. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. How are you today, Dave?
I am fan-fucking-tastic.
I'm glad to hear that. I know you've been living a new and exciting lifestyle just recently, so I'm happy for you.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know, I'm pretty happy too. Things are actually working out in more ways than one, so
good.
It's not too bad.
That's excellent.
Yeah. So, Scott, you are a real estate agent.
I am a real estate agent. Yes, I work with Century 21 Butler and Associates in Coeur d'Alene, and I've been doing that for almost 10 years now. It'll be 10 years in October coming up here. And I am very blessed and lucky to do something I enjoy. I get a lot of fulfillment out of helping people to reach their goals and buy and sell homes and upgrade or downsize or acquire land to enjoy for recreation or to build on. I mean, I help buyers and sellers, and I gain great enjoyment from it.
So 10 years just at Century 21, or have you been in the business longer than that?
I have been in the business just about 9.5 years. I started after I mean, if you want me to start at the beginning, we have a hell of a story to tell.
Yeah,
so,
let's hear it, man.
Well, so from a very young age, I worked in construction. My father is a contractor. He owns a custom home building business, style built construction. He's been doing that for nearly 50 years in our area. He's just an incredible builder, and he does everything through word of mouth. He has never been one to do a lot of advertising. So he just provided great customer service to his clients over the years. And he would do pretty much whatever they asked of him because he is a full custom builder. And I learned my work ethic and my way of doing business from my father. And it's really helped me in my business as a real estate agent. Yeah, it's been great to have that background knowledge. Now, through the years in construction, I worked with him in his business, but I also worked for many subcontractors of his. So I've done concrete flat work. I've done finish work. I've done framing. I framed for a number of years for one of his subcontractors, and I gained a lot of knowledge in different areas of construction. That was a great benefit to what I do now because it helps me when I show other people properties.
Yeah, you should be able to like pick out weird shit or something like that, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at a house and you're like, I don't know about that foundation.
Well, and that's a lot of what I do when I go through homes with people. I help them to look at items that may not be done properly, or when things are done well, I can spot that as well and point that out.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a benefit to my business. Now, I worked in construction until 2007, and at that time, I broke my back snow skiing. So I was up at Schweitzer and we were in the snowboard park, and I have a bad habit of pushing myself beyond the limits. And I was doing a backflip, and I way overshot the landing and landed flat on my back. And I got compression fractures in my T4 and T5 vertebra. So while I was being treated for my back, the doctor said, you should probably find a new career because construction is not going to be a good position for you with the condition of your back.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So at that time, that served as a catalyst for change. While I really enjoyed construction because I love the process and I love to look back at the end of the day and see what I have completed and to look at the progress. I loved when I was framing a house, and I'm a thrill seeker anyway. So walking walls and being up on ladders and working with power equipment.
Adrenaline junkie.
Yeah, I am a true adrenaline junkie. I'm always trying to find new ways to live life and live it in an exciting way. So throughout my career in construction, I really enjoyed the hands-on aspect and creating something that was really fulfilling to me at that time in my life. But when I broke my back, I wanted to do something where I could start helping people. So when I went to school, I had an emphasis on pursuing law.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I didn't get into my background in alcoholism and substance abuse. That is a whole nother story. But I can get into that in a bit. But through my trials and tribulations in addiction and alcoholism, I went through the court systems, and I got DUIs, and I got minor in possession of alcohol, and some paraphernalia charges.
I think everybody's had that, though.
Yeah, of course they have, but I'm an adrenaline junkie, so I always took it to the next level. My motto is always go big or go home. Yeah. Damn right. So, and I went bigger than most. So, but I continually put myself in compromising positions and ended up being in trouble with the law. But I always tried to be a really good person and be helpful to others. And I always tried to do things with a positive attitude. And even when I was getting into trouble, I always tried to do the right thing and be honest and try to work with the system. But they always tried to make an example out of me. They continually threw the book at me, and I spent time in jail, and I had to do a lot of probation and a lot of community service and pay a lot of fines. And even though I was trying to be honest and be forthcoming and work through my issues, I continued getting in trouble, and they continued to be hard on me. And I just felt like I was getting a shitty deal. So I wanted to help others. And that's what pushed me into pursuing law. So when I went back to school in 2007, I started at NIC, and I did a couple years at NIC, and I excelled at my studies, because at that time I had become newly sober. I fought alcoholism and addiction for many years. And then finally in 2007, when I broke my back and I was laying in the hospital, and they were like, gosh, you're going to be on bed rest, and you're going to have to do this, and you're going to be out of the game for a bit, I decided it was time to change my lifestyle. And that's still a long story. I need to go into that further. But honestly, through all of the things that I did, pursuing law, I went to law school at U of I after I graduated from Gonzaga in 2011, and ended up doing a semester of law school at U of I. And in the pursuit of law, I realized I'm miserable. I always try to be the best at whatever I do. So I was studying too much. I was trying to be the best in that field and at that school. So I was burning myself out. Yeah,
just too much.
It was way too much. And I wasn't allowing myself to enjoy the process. So I just wanted to keep studying and read, and it was too much. So I ended up dropping out and went into social work for a year and did social work, and realized that social work is just a money grab. It's not about really helping people. It became a situation where people were making it clear that they were just there to make money off of the system.
Right.
And those were the companies that we were working for to provide care to clients. And it turned into a situation where I actually got fired because I was trying to really help people and help them to excel in life and form new relationships and become better humans. And I worked with a lot of younger kids who were in in families or situations where they didn't have a lot of positive reinforcement and they didn't have positive role models. The unfortunate thing about our social system is when families get onto those social services, the system tries to hold you there.
Right. Yeah. They try to just hold you back.
Yeah. Because a lot of the families who I worked with couldn't have good jobs that provided them with a decent income and provided them with benefits, because once you start making more money than the system allows, then they cut you off of your benefits, which is Medicaid. A lot of these families got their services through Medicaid. And unfortunately, kids learn from their parents. Right. So kids are always looking to their parents for guidance and to be a role model. And these families were stuck in a rut where the parents weren't trying to do anything. They weren't trying to succeed and do better and make a life for themselves. They were content just allowing the system to provide Medicaid so that their kids could have these services, but then they were barely getting enough to get by. They were living impoverished lives. And it was really hard to go into some of these houses. It was really sad. So
yeah, it always seems like the system is set up exactly to keep people in the system. Like if you make it discourages you to go out and actually work hard, because you get to a certain point where it's like this mid area where then you make too much. So now you lose the assistance that you still need because you're not quite on your feet yet. But as soon as you get to that point, they're like, nope, screw you. No more check.
And that's exactly what was happening.
And they don't look at anything as like a case by case basis. You know, it's just a blanket. Well, the rule says this, you make this much now, you're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they incentivize complacency.
Yeah.
Yeah. They incentivize people to not try. And
why go out and work harder to make a life for yourself when you could just sit and do nothing and collect a check?
Well, and when you have kids that have disabilities and need assistance, then it puts you in a position where you're kind of stuck.
Right.
Because while you may think, hey, it would be great to go out and start living my life and providing for my family and trying to do better, at the same time, you're like, well, my kids are my world and I need to make sure that my kids are taken care of. And if I don't have this assistance from the state, then it could put my kids in jeopardy.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not helping you at all.
No, it's tragic. I mean, it was really sad to see. And there were kids that had been stuck in this cycle for years. I saw one kid that had been in the system for 7 years with the same PSR worker, and the company said, oh, you can only work on one life skill per week. You cannot do more than that. And I was like, these kids they're not helpless. These kids can think for themselves. And just because they may have some disabilities doesn't mean we can't strive to help them in ways that are more defined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Far more beneficial than just, putting just hampering them and putting limits on them.
Well, and that's it. And they treated these kids like they were victims, and they couldn't fathom that these kids were able to do more. So they got upset with me when I would start trying to work with these kids. And I looked at it more from a mentorship scenario, which may not have been ideal from my employer's perspective. They wanted to be more of a counselor or a facilitator. Right. But these kids needed positive people in their lives to show them that there was more to life than just sitting back and being treated like they were lesser than. Yeah. Because that's one of the problems with the system. It makes you feel like you're not good enough. So I always treated these kids like they were just amazing, wonderful kids, and everything was possible. And it turned out to be really positive. The counselors who would meet with these kids, because I did more of a situation where I would spend time with them and help them learn tools to deal with their everyday life. And then the counselors would do more of the in-depth treatment to work on their cognitive and mental state. But the counselors praised me for the work that I was doing with these kids, because the kids were really making great progress and starting to come out of their shells and starting to form relationships with other kids their age and starting to do better in school. So the counselors thanked me for what I was doing, but at the same time, I was working with their families as well and trying to be a positive influence on the parents as well as the kids. And some of these parents would say, hey, he's right. We can do more, and we can go out and start working for ourselves and making money. And a lot of these families would do that. And then they'd get to the point where they would establish their own benefits after a certain amount of time with an employer.
Yeah.
And they'd get kicked off of Medicaid.
Of course. Because
the state would say, sorry, you're making too much money. But they would get to a point where they were established and they'd start making their own benefits. But the benefits that they would get wouldn't cover services like PSR work, which was my profession. So my employer ended up firing me because they kept losing an income stream. And that's where I learned that it's more of a money grab than actually trying to help people.
Yeah, they don't really give a shit about people.
Not really. As long as they're making a paycheck. And it's really sad to see. I mean, there are some companies out there that have integrity and try to do the right thing. But from what I've seen from different companies in our area and from hearing about different social systems around the country, a lot of it is just a way to make income, to make a living. So
yeah, it's fucking sad because it shows you that they really don't care, and all they want is dollar bills. Like, you are going out there and you're helping these people to become more than what they are, and to think for themselves and be like, oh yeah, we can do better, and to want to actually contribute to society and to their own life. And then of course they fire you because they're losing people.
Yes.
Off the system.
Oh yeah. It was shocking.
That's fucked up.
It was heartbreaking. And I was actually offered another position through another social work company when I got fired by my previous employer. But at that time, I realized that it was just a really depressing way to make a living. Some of the households I went into it was so sad just to see the conditions that these children were living in. I mean, we think of Coeur d'Alene as a really nice middle class area where everyone is in pretty good economic standing. Yeah. But when you go into some of these households and see the way some of these families are living, I mean, it is just, it's horrible and it's heartbreaking because they're living in poverty. And on many occasions, instead of getting good food for the family and trying to take care of these kids, the family members are all living in a state of depression. So when you're in a state of depression, you seek other things to mask your situation. And they were buying cigarettes and beer and alcohol and I don't know, but potentially other things that weren't contributing to their family life. Yeah. And to the well-being of the children. And it was just tragic. And while I really enjoyed helping those children, it became a situation where it was going to affect my ability to maintain a positive outlook and pursue the goals and dreams that I wanted to pursue, because I had never settled down and never had I had never been married. I had no children at that time. I was in my 30s at that point, and one of my goals was to have my own family. So So I decided to go into real estate at the suggestion of my mother. Yeah. I'm grateful to my mother because she recommended that I try out this real estate school. She contacted me and said this real estate school was offering classes and that she felt I would do well in that field. And interestingly, it was a real property class in law school. Okay. And it was one of the most enjoyable classes I took while I was at law school. And I thought, that would be a great transition. And I went to real estate school and completed it in 2 weeks. It's a really easy, it's not easy, it's challenging. But once you complete a 2-week class, you can test to get your real estate license nationally and within the state. So, and I did that and got licensed and found my way into real estate. So
nice.
Yeah. Best decision I ever made. I'm grateful to my mom every day for making that suggestion. And, and I never want to do anything else. I believe I found my calling and it is, it's a career. It's not just a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You always seem like you have really happy customers. So
I try to, and, I just love being of service to others. So
it's always good. I'm sure it takes a lot of that being in real estate.
Yeah. We have to be in tune with our clients' needs, and we have to provide good communication, and we have to be knowledgeable in contracts, and we have to always hold our client's best interest in mind.
Yeah. Well, you seem like a people, and that definitely takes that, I'm sure, networking and, talking to everybody and making connections and all that.
Oh, I've always been very outgoing, and I've loved creating relationships with others.
So you mentioned your past with drugs and alcohol and everything else.
Yes.
You want to get into some of that? We don't have to, but
most definitely. Yeah. I'm very open and honest about it. As a recovering alcoholic, I need to remember where I came from.
Yeah.
And I need to understand that is part of who I am. My drug and alcohol use will always be a part of my past. That can never be taken away from me. But I also need to realize that it helped to make me who I am today. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if anything, we are all the bulk of our experiences. That's how you learn.
Yes.
By, without failure, you can never really succeed as far as I'm concerned. So, sometimes you have to fuck stuff up in order to build something better.
Oh, I did a great job of it too. I excelled at fucking shit up. I started drinking at a very young age. I started drinking at 12.
It's probably about when I started drinking.
Yeah. And when I started drinking, I made the mistake of drinking red wine.
Ouch.
Yeah, red wine is not forgiving. That shit will make you sick as fuck. So a buddy was staying at my house for a couple weeks while his parents were out of town, and we stole a couple bottles of wine from my parents and proceeded to get just hammered. We had a really good time when we were drinking, but God, I was so sick the next day, and I vomited all over the place. And my parents walked in the morning and said, "Gosh, Scott, do you know if your sister was drinking last night?" And immediately they smelled and saw my condition, and they realized that it was not my sister. It was definitely my friend and I. So, and after that point, I continued to go down that path. And the problem with the alcoholic mind is that we never remember the bad things.
Oh,
We just remember the fun that we had. Even though I felt so fucking miserable that first morning after I drank, and my parents made us go out and do yard work in the hot sun during the summer, and it was miserable. We were dehydrated, and it just compounded our sickness.
Yeah.
But I remembered what a great time we had when we were drinking.
Yeah.
And I continued to find ways to get alcohol and drink. And the thing about Coeur d'Alene is we are kind of a party community.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. From a very young age, I remember people older than me, because I have several siblings. I have 4 sisters and a brother, and I was second to the youngest. So watching my brothers and sisters grow up, every once in a while there'd be parties thrown at my house by my older siblings, and they'd have friends over from high school, and I would be there and present and watching what was going on. And I kind of put a lot of stock into that lifestyle, into partying and having fun. And I thought that was important.
Yeah.
As a younger sibling, watching this around me and seeing attractive girls drinking and seeing the interaction between people, I found it very appealing.
Yeah, like your childhood was one giant Budweiser commercial.
Well, potentially, yeah. But I mean, it was
the hot drunk chicks everywhere.
Yeah. That
sounds awesome.
Yeah, and I was a pervert from a young age. We went to Catholic school when we were kids. So,
yeah, there you go.
So I have this plaid skirt, in my mind, it is the hottest thing ever. And still to this day, I love plaid skirts, and I try to get my wife to don one from time to time.
The old Catholic schoolgirl.
Yeah. It was really interesting. So, but yeah, from a really young age, I just found the drinking and partying lifestyle very appealing. And so I continued to pursue that through my childhood and into high school. I mean, I started throwing parties at a very young age. As a sophomore in high school, I was throwing ragers at my parents' property and having tons of people there. I mean, it was really irresponsible of me, but I also was at a point in my life where I didn't think about consequences. I just thought about the good times and the fun to be had. And it was really, it was pretty bad what I was putting my parents through at that time, because they were really strict about me not drinking and partying with my friends. And I remember on many occasions they caught me drunk or high, and I smoked a lot of weed as a kid, and I have a lazy eye when I smoke weed. So it was super easy for my parents to catch me when I was in the act of smoking. So
it's only when you smoke weed?
Yeah, when I smoke weed.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Or when I get tired also, I guess it'll happen, but it's a surefire thing when I smoke weed. Yeah, but when I quit drinking years ago, I quit smoking pot as well. I've been sober now for 16 years. So
it's good, man.
Yeah, it's a blessing. It's something I needed to do because I was tired of going to jail. I'm not going to lie. Jail is what got me to stop. I could have drank myself to death and it wouldn't have bothered me one bit, but going to jail was the thing that pissed me off enough to make me decide I need to change my way of life, because
extremely annoying.
It was extremely annoying. It was maddening to be locked up. I did not want to be in that situation where I couldn't make decisions for myself. I'm not going to allow myself to be in a position where other people are going to tell me how to live.
Yeah, so, just being locked up and controlled alone.
Yes, it fucking pissed me off.
Yeah.
And it was such an interesting dynamic, because while I was going I would continue going back to jail because I got DUIs. And when you get DUIs, they put you on probation and they say, hey, you need to take these drug tests and you need to be here at this time to do this and you need to go to these classes. And on more than one occasion, I would get caught drinking or smoking weed.
On probation?
On probation.
Oh, yeah.
And then they'd throw me back in jail for a couple weeks. And then I'd get out and then I'd go back to the same behavior and then they'd throw me back in jail. And, and eventually I was in jail enough times with younger kids that were, cause I was 27 when I quit drinking. But before that time, before I quit, I went back to jail a few times. And while I was there were younger kids that didn't get it. I didn't even get it at that point. I kept going back and drinking. But these kids would be like, gosh, I got a year, but I can do a year standing on my head. And while I was making this transition in my mind into realizing that I can't drink and live the life that I want to live and be a productive member of society, all these kids were kind of in a position where they didn't really give a fuck. They were going to continue drinking and selling drugs and partying and doing whatever the hell they were doing.
Yeah. But that was you not too long before that.
It was me. Yeah. Yes, that's correct. But I had been to enough treatment and been to enough AA meetings that were forced by the courts that I started to pick up guidance and pointers and tools to help build a foundation in sobriety. And I had never really taken it seriously. I was always of the belief that at some point I would just decide it was time to stop drinking. And I didn't think I had to put in any work. Unfortunately, without action, we don't make progress.
Yeah.
And we know that from where we come from, that you have to take action to make progress. So
yeah, doing nothing doesn't get results.
No, definitely not. So I started to realize, hey, I need to fucking do something, because continuing down the path that I'm on it's either going to kill me or it's going to land me in prison. And I have more to offer than that. So I started to make positive changes in my life. At 27, I had been to rehab at 18, and then I'd been again at like 25, and neither of those worked for me. But then I went to jail. One of the last times I had the opportunity to go to jail for 2 weeks. And when I got out, I went and I saw my probation officer, and she said, listen, if you get in trouble again, you're going to prison for a year. And at that point I said, this is it. I can either stop now or I'm going to have to pay the piper. So at that point, I put myself into rehab. I did 3 weeks in a rehabilitation center here in Coeur d'Alene. And I took it seriously. I actually went through the process to start doing things correctly. And I had to do treatment, and I had to continue going to AA meetings, and I had to continue working with the court system to get through the remainder of my probation. And I immediately told myself I cannot have alcohol in my life. It is what will destroy me. So I did. At 27 years old, I quit drinking. I quit using marijuana. I stopped using substances, and I started to go back to school. I put myself in summer school at NIC, and that's when I started my college career over again. And I just started to hang out with people that did not drink and use. That was a big part of what I needed to do.
Yeah, you changed your surroundings.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big important thing.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of people who don't realize this. If you just keep hanging around the same fucking people, then you're going to keep falling into the same habits.
Yes. Well, and I honestly, I was so impressionable when I was around other people that were drinking and using, I would fall back into those same patterns.
Yeah.
So I started going to AA every day, and I started hanging out with people in those rooms that were my age and were my peers. And we started having like dinner parties, and we'd do things without the inclusion of alcohol. And this was, I mean, gosh, this was 16 years ago. So, right now there's a trend of younger people not drinking. And there are non-alcoholic beverages that are being made by people, like bartenders are starting to make things that are non-alcoholic and that taste delicious. And now people can start hanging out in a scenario where there may be alcohol around, but they don't have to drink because there are other options available.
Yeah.
When I was quitting drinking, if I wasn't drinking an alcoholic beverage and I was in a scenario where everyone else was, people would question me. Why aren't you drinking? Like, why don't you have a drink in your hand?
Because I don't fucking feel like it.
Yeah. Because if I start drinking, then I don't know when I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
That was always the answer, because I would take it to the limit.
Yeah, you always have those people that don't get it. They're like, well, just have a drink. It's just one drink. It's not a bit. No, you don't get it. It's one drink, and then the next thing I know, I'm waking up 2 weeks from now snorting meth off a switchblade in some fucking cantina in Tijuana, and I have no idea how I got there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was not okay. So very early on in my sobriety, I was focused on building a foundation, a solid foundation that if I did get put in a position where I was tempted to drink, I had tools to utilize. Yeah. And I got myself a sponsor, and I would contact him on many occasions. If I was feeling weak or if I needed assistance, then he would always pick up, and he would always be there for me if I needed someone to talk to. And it was a great resource for someone early in sobriety.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't feel comfortable with that. They feel like they need to do it on their own. But unfortunately, our alcoholic mind always tries to trick us back into our old ways and old habits.
Yeah, I think people just have a hard time asking for help.
That's very true. Yes.
Which is sad, because most people need it.
Yeah. Yeah, and having the support of others who want the best for us is really important to our well-being and us being able to reach those goals.
Yeah, and I don't even know what that is either. Like, is it that people don't want to feel like a burden, or they're just afraid to be vulnerable or something? I don't know. It's weird, but if you need help, man, ask for help.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of things. Yeah. I think people, males especially, see it as a sign of weakness.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not a sign of weakness, because the hardest thing as a guy to do is to ask for help, or to go to your buddies and be like, man, I'm fucked up. I don't know what to do. I mean, that's tough. Mm-hmm. That takes being brave, not just like, well, I'm gonna do it myself. And then you fail time and time again. Yeah.
'Cause it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough without support to be able to make it through. A lot of people claim that they'll do it on willpower, but unfortunately, when it comes to our minds constantly trying to break down our will to succeed at something that we're trying to, and not allowing ourselves the proper support systems, then we most likely will fail.
Yeah, the conscious mind is able to be like, okay, well, I don't need this, I'll be fine. But then the subconscious is what's really the powerhouse. And if the programming in the subconscious is there, that's always been like, oh yeah, have a drink. Oh, party time, have a drink. Oh, do some blow, whatever. Like, it's no matter how much you want to tell yourself, yeah, I don't need that, it's very hard to subjugate that programming. Yeah. Unless you work on it and you reprogram it.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to change our our way of thinking.
Yeah.
That is the most important, and our subconscious will constantly try to overrule what our conscious mind is telling us.
Right.
Yeah, and still to this day, my subconscious will sneak in and try to tell me, hey man, it's okay to have a drink.
Yeah.
I mean, even after 16 years.
Yeah.
So it's the most interesting thing to be with my family somewhere. Like, we go on some vacations, and to be at an all-inclusive in Mexico, and we don't have to drive anywhere, and we don't have anything to do. We can just hang out by the pool and relax, and my mind will sneak up on me and say, hey, you could totally have a drink right now.
Yeah.
Nobody would question you. You could totally do it.
Except your wife, probably.
Well, yes, but it doesn't matter because my mind is trying to trick me.
Yeah.
And it's the craziest thing, because still to this day, I need to be like, no, that's not okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. It's pretty crazy how cunning our mind is.
Yeah, it is, man. That's nuts. Yeah, I can't. I mean, other than food, I've always had a struggle with food. But I mean, other than that, I've never really had anything in there that's like, oh yeah, you should totally do that right now. You know what I mean? Like that, the addictions call. Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons why I never really got into drugs is very heavy. You know, like, yeah, I smoked weed and some pills here and there, but never did really much anything else, because I was actually worried, like, okay, smoking, I can quit smoking anytime. I can just put it down and walk away and be like, yeah, okay, that's lame. Like drinking, I like to drink, but I don't have to. I mean, I've quit for years at a time before and just be like, whatever, you know, and then I just get bored and I'm like, no, I'll have a drink. Like, it doesn't bother me, but like the drug stuff, I've always worried that there might be that one thing that I try that's like, oh my God, this is better than fucking being alive. I have to have this every day.
It's funny you mention that, because as a person with an addictive personality, for years I wouldn't allow myself to do cocaine. Cocaine was always off limits to me, because I knew that I always heard that it was such an incredible substance and would just set your mind free, and you had so much glorious energy and positive energy, depending on your state of mind, that I wouldn't allow myself to do it.
Yeah.
I always said, there's no way. I'm not going to do that. I'm not touching it. Well, when I was about 25, I ended a long-term relationship with a significant other of mine. We had lived together for a number of years in Portland, and we were engaged to be married. And this was during the height of my alcoholism. And I was a fucking mess. And I did not respect her and treat her as she should have been treated. I wasn't violent or physically abusive or anything like that, but I was selfish, and I was constantly drinking and not being the man that she needed me to be in the relationship.
Yeah. Well, you were 25, dude.
I was still an adolescent in my mind, because I started drinking at such a young age and drank so regularly that I don't think that I developed and matured the way I should have at that age. Where a lot of people were focused on college or starting a career and building a household or putting themselves in a position for success. For years, I was just focused on that party atmosphere. And
I don't know many people that are of any kind of responsible at 25.
Yeah.
I know I sure as hell wasn't.
Yeah. But
if I thought at all that I was the same person now that I was at 25, man, I'd be sorely disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. I've come a long way since 25.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strides. But still, I understand that I was not I was not a good partner to that woman.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because she was an amazing, beautiful person. And I was very blessed to have the time that I did with her. But I ended up breaking up with her at that point in my life because I was deep in my alcoholism and my depression, and I didn't want her to be around me at that time.
Oh, gotcha.
But when I did that, it put me into a downward spiral.
Yeah.
It put me even further into my darkness. And
so you're at rock bottom and looking for a shovel to go further.
Yes. And then I started doing cocaine, and that while it heightened my, position for a short period of time and would make me just invincible. On the other side of that, it brought me down into the depths, and I was miserable, and I didn't like who I was at that time, and I was just I was lost, and it was a mess. I did that for about 2 years and just took it to the extremes, and was I was just doing things that should have killed me, and it didn't, which is amazing. I mean, to make it through that was definitely, it was lucky, because even a lot of my friends are like, dude, you were out there. For you to come back from where you were is such an incredible feat. So I'm lucky. I'm lucky that when I came back to Coeur d'Alene, my dad drove down in the middle of the night to Portland and picked me up and took me out of that environment, because I didn't have anyone there at that point. My best friend who had been living with me couldn't take it anymore. He moved out. I was no longer with my significant other. So the people that kept me grounded were no longer in my life. So I was free to do whatever I wanted. And at some point, some girl I had been hanging out with called my family and said, hey, you guys need to come get this kid because he is a mess. And my dad did. My dad came through and pulled me out of there and saved my life. It was pretty amazing. And
nice.
And I owe a lot to my mom and dad for being my constant support. Even when I was doing things to disrespect their household and their real estate and their graciousness towards me, they always stood by my side. And my siblings had had enough of me. And my parents never gave up on me. I'm very lucky.
Nice.
Yeah, that was, I owe them the world, because they helped get me through. Yeah. And then it still took me 2 years after that point in time to get to the point where I was ready to stop drinking and using it. It's a hard fought battle. It's amazing how much it takes for someone that is stuck in addiction and alcoholism, that are really overtaken by that, to dig themselves out of that hole. And for some, it's easier. For some, if something bad happens in their life, they can immediately do an about face and say, you know what, I'm done with that. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
But for others, it takes a hell of a lot of wreckage and depression and sadness and anger and defeat to finally find our way out.
Yeah, extremely difficult for some people.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
It's really amazing, because I look around me now at other people in my life who have been drinking and using, and I've seen really young people be beaten by alcoholism and addiction. a dear friend of mine passed away at 35 because of alcoholism. Eventually, her organs just gave up on her. She died at 35. I know of other people who in their 30s were taken by alcoholism and addiction, and it's really amazing that even when doctors are telling us, hey, you need to turn your life around, because if you don't, it's going to kill you.
Yeah.
And some people continue down that path regardless of knowing that their death could be upon them.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened to Stevie Nicks.
Yeah.
You know, she was at that point too. Actually, I can't remember. It was a documentary, I believe, about her or about Fleetwood Mac, one or the other. But there's a part in it where she was talking about how, you know, she went to the doctor and she was having nosebleeds, like really bad. And he was like, yeah, well, that's because you do enough coke to kill a small elephant. Like, you can't just keep doing this and expect that everything's going to be hunky-dory. So he's telling her that you've completely eroded the lining in your sinuses. And if, you know, it could be the next time you do it, it could be, you know, the next few times that you do it. But eventually you're going to break through that wall and you could hemorrhage and cause, you know, basically a serious overdose, because the coke would blow through and go directly into your brain or something like that. And you'd like OD instantly. And she was like, oh, fuck, maybe I should quit doing coke.
Yeah. Well, but other people that are told the same thing, they don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
Or they take it seriously, but they're at the point in their lives where they are in such despair that they're ready to be taken out.
Yeah, they just give in.
Yeah.
Because the alternative is too hard.
Yeah, or they feel like they'll just live in pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is really sad. Yeah, I mean, the despair that is caused by feeling helpless and by feeling that you have no control, is overwhelming, and it can really be hard on our psyche and our ability to have the will to continue pushing forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that's why if you need help, ask for help.
Correct.
You know, go out and find it, get it wherever you can get it.
Yeah, it's important. Well, and that's part of the service that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, you've done sponsorship as well, haven't you?
I've sponsored, but more importantly, I just started doing things within the program of AA, or Narcotics Anonymous, to start getting outside of myself and being of service to others. I started really small. I started opening up a meeting. Yeah. And I worked with my sponsor, and he said, hey, you need to get involved. You need to start doing things that are going to get you involved in the program, and you need to start giving back. So I started just by opening up my home group meeting. And I did that for a year, where I would just go in and open up and turn the lights on and make coffee and get everything set up for people to come in. And then I got involved in chairing meetings. You had to have a certain amount of sobriety to start chairing meetings. And I made that a goal. I said, hey, I want to get to this point so I can start doing this. And I started chairing, and I started, I was a treasurer on a group, and I got involved in the program. And I started to, while I love to share, yeah, you guys have heard me talk before, and I tend to talk too much. So I started to listen, because listening is a big part of being of service toward others.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start opening myself up to just listening and letting other people discuss what was going on with them, instead of me always trying to control the conversation.
Right.
Yeah. And then it grew to bigger and better things. Eventually, I started going to treatment centers in the area. I'd go to a couple different treatment centers, and I'd share my experience, strength, and hope, which is just my experience in early sobriety and how I started to build a foundation in sobriety. And I would share that with people that were in rehab facilities, so I could maybe inspire them to maintain their sobriety once they got out and start to go out and take steps to build their own foundation in sobriety. And that was super rewarding. I gained a lot from the ability to go out and share my story with others, and I would go with other recovering alcoholics and addicts, and I would listen to their stories too. Nice. And yeah, it was a great way to get involved. And I did that for a few years when I was going to AA, but there's more to it than that. I mean, I started getting involved in the community as well. I started doing things with Coats for Kids and St. Vincent de Paul, and I started just helping friends and people who I didn't know, people who knew I was in sobriety, and when they were struggling with alcoholism or addiction, they would reach out to me and ask if I would help them, and I kind of sponsored some people, and there's one person in particular who was really struggling, and I would hang out with him and try to just live by example. And eventually, after struggling for a while, as do a lot of people in addiction, he found the path to living a sober and healthy lifestyle. And to this day, he maintains his sobriety, and he's a better father, and he's got a solid relationship, and he has another child with his new wife, and it's incredible to see. It's really a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Well, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the chance to be the person I really should have been when I was younger. I squandered a lot of opportunities, and I took a lot of things for granted, and I caused a lot of pain and suffering for my family and for ex-girlfriends and ex-fiancés, and I wasn't the best person I could be. So once I started on a path in sobriety, it was about me building myself up and being the best person I could be to have a family and be a good father and friend and parent, and be a good role model for others. And I love the opportunity to enjoy my own family these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott Fink, real estate agent / anti-addiction superhero.
I don't know if I'm a superhero. I'm just happy to be where I am today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you, man. And I appreciate your stories and talking to you at men's group and everything else.
Yeah.
You're a good guy, man.
Thank you. Thank you. And you are too. And I'm blessed to have the men's group. I'm so glad that we've carried that on, and that JJ was able to keep us together, because I think it's really important to our growth as individuals.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad he kept it going too. He's definitely the one to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's excellent. And I want to apologize because I've been all over the board today. I didn't maintain a lot of focus, but
if you've heard any of our past episodes, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, honestly, I barely broke off the tip of the iceberg. So
that's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't usually do scripts or anything like that. And I try to prepare a little bit better, like questions specifically for people. And yeah, it was a busy day, so I didn't really do much of that. So I apologize. I should have done a little more work ahead of time, but
if you know anything about me, I can talk. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I'm happy to share, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to come here and talk with you. And thank you very much for having me as a guest. Yeah,
man. Thanks for coming. It was a lot of fun. I was glad to have you share and hear everything. And hopefully, I mean, you know, anything that you've said or maybe that I've said would be helpful to somebody who might be listening that's having an issue of their own. Yeah. Well, and people, if they ever need assistance, they can always reach out to me. I'm easy to find on the internet. The Googles. Yes, you can find Scott Fink. I am always happy to attend meetings with people that are early in recovery if they need assistance. I'm also available for real estate guidance if anybody needs that. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, just look up Scott Fink Century 21 and they should be able to find me. Awesome. Well, hey, I guess we can wrap it up right there. We're at an hour. Awesome, man. Yeah. All right. Thanks again for coming. Appreciate it. Everybody out there, thanks for listening. And you know the words, keep on grinding. Bye, everybody. Bye.